here, and in this tutorial I'm gonna talk about how to use testing with Jetpack Compose. Okay, so Jetpack Compose, actually it provides a lot of libraries, these are the libraries that we have to implement to use Jetpack Compose to do testing with Jetpack Compose. That is this one, so you can focus on this testing dependencies that you have to implement. Okay, so if we use Robo Electric, we can write our test code in test folder. We can actually write both the Robo Electric test for testing the logic, whereas we can also use Espresso testing for instrumentation testing. The test is written pretty much on the Android test folder, right? So this is also viewed as a instrumentation test. Okay, the testing library is this one that I have already shown you. And if we want to also test the activity that sets the composable function as content, then we will also need to add this following library that we have already written, is this manifest, UI test manifest. If you want to test if you also want to test the activity that sets the composable function as a content. Okay, so this is how it is working. So we will now focus on creating a simple test. So this is my file where I'm writing my compose test class, where to test, obviously you need to use a test rule that provides a set of methods used for interacting with the composable elements and perform assertions on them, right? So we have multiple ways of obtaining that rule through the through this approach that I'm gonna show here. We will just get the rule. We'll get the compose test rule for activity. So we create Android compose rule. You can pass your activity like my like activity 1, and then we also get the second rule, which is compose test rule for no activity. For no activity, we will do a create compose rule for no activity. And finally, now we can write our test. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna write a test for testing test no activity function. So this test no activity function will just use the compose test rule for no activity, and you set your content and do okay, set methods you want to test here. Okay, so you will just pretty much follow this pattern. Okay, so as you can see here, we have two test rules. One is for the test rule for activity. We'll start the activity that holds the composable function that we want to test, and we'll hold all nodes we want to assert. Okay, the second one, compose test rules for no activity. This provides the ability to set the content, the function we want to test. This will then allow the rules to have access to all composable elements. So okay, let me write another test for testing test activity function. So here we're gonna write our test compose test rule for activity, and then on node with text is my test text. So you have our my test. So we can also have a compose test rule for activity on node with content description, and your content description is my content description. Compose test rule for activity, sorry guys, for activity and on node with the tag, and here my test tag. So this is the situation, right guys? So on node with the text method will which will identify a particular UI elements used in the text label that is visible to the user, and on node with the content description method will identify the element using the content description that is set, and on node with tag will identify the elements using the test tag, okay, which is set using the modifier test tag method, right? So like also Expresso, once we identify the elements we want to interact with or perform assertions on, which we have similar methods for both situation. So actually we have a similar method like Expresso, so let me show that. For activity, and then on node with text is my test text. Okay, here we can just use the similar method like Expresso as I told you, and perform scroll to and from text input my new test text. You can perform many more things like that, right? So like Expresso as you can see here. Now also we can assert, right? So we can do also some assertion like compose test rule for activity on node with text is similarly my test text. You can do assertion assert is displayed, assert is not displayed, so assert is enabled, assert is not enabled, many assertions can be also done like Expresso. Assert is selected, assert is not selected, yeah, and so on. Okay, so actually if our user interface has multiple elements with the same text, we can also have an option to extract all of them using the following, like compose test rule for activity and on all node with text. If all nodes of the text has my text, then you can also do that situation, right? And similarly with content description, my content description, yeah, so similar things goes on, right? And you can also pretty much perform your assertion here. Assertion is okay, if you want to perform the assertion, obviously you have to find the first one and then is displayed, right? Okay, in this manner. And so we can also perform assertion in a collection. Okay, so how can we put the do the assertion on all nodes with the text, my text, so assert count equals 3, assert all. Actually we can do a lot of assertions, right? Semantic matchers, evaluate value, you can evaluate the value of selected property is selected and is true. Okay, so expected value is that one, or you can assert any of semantic matchers if expected value is the semantics properties selected and is true. Okay. Okay, here we assert the number of elements that have my text as a text set is there, right? So here in this case we will assert that all elements are selected and at least one element is selected, right? So all elements selected, or at least only one element is selected here, right? So also there is another similarity of with Expresso is that when testing Jetpack Compose testing we are also using idling resources. So Compose provides its own idling resources abstraction, which is separate from Espresso and can be registered to our test resource as follow. Okay, so we have to register our idling resources. Function first set up compose test rule for activity, register idling resources and idling resources. Right, your idling resources here. Resource. Okay, you can pass your idling resources like your my test float test. Okay, in this manner. Uh, resources. So we also need our application. So you can get the application from a pretty similar manner here, and we pass our idling resources, right? Instance and uh, so we need here composable idling resources. So and you can also actually tear down your idling resources. Okay guys, so that's it. And okay, so here we have yeah, we can do the same like idling resources, setting up and tearing down, you know. And this is all about compose, testing with compose. Thank you guys, hope it's really helpful for you guys.